Hello, my name is Vecna, my pronouns are they, them, and today I will be presenting TrollPatrol, anonymous user reporting of bridge censorship. Suppose that Alice wants to visit some website on the internet, but Alice lives in a region where the internet is censored, and she's not allowed to access this website. How can she get around this censorship? Well, she might try using Tor. The basic idea here is that if the censor doesn't know which things she's accessing over Tor, it can't discriminately prevent her from accessing certain websites over Tor while allowing other things to happen over Tor. But the censor can simply block access to Tor. To get around censorship of Tor, Alice can use a bridge, which is sort of a secret Tor node. It's not listed in the Tor consensus, and as long as the censor doesn't realize that it's a bridge, Alice can use it to access Tor. However, if the censor discovers that the server Alice is contacting is a bridge, it can of course simply block access to it, thus cutting Alice off of Tor and preventing her from accessing the website that she wants to visit. There is an inherent problem in bridge distribution, which is, how do we get access to bridges to the users who need them without also providing a venue for the censor to learn about those same bridges and then block access to them? This is the bridge distribution problem. One solution to the bridge distribution problem is reputation-based bridge distribution systems. In these systems, users have some reputation, and they can do things like learn bridges, and then invite their friends to use the same bridges that they know. It is theorized, at least, that it will be difficult for the censor to get an invitation. So reputation-based bridge distribution systems address the bridge distribution problem. But, in order for them to work, they need to know which bridges are blocked and which are not. That's because the basic reputation mechanism is users are distributed bridges, and if the bridges that they know about don't become blocked, over time the users will accrue reputation. They do not appear to be cooperating with the censor, therefore we assume we can trust them more. However, if they're given secret information about bridges, and then those bridges do become blocked, then they and their friends whom they invited to join them on their bridges will lose reputation, because they knew the secret information that got out, they may have revealed it to the censor. Of particular interest is locks. Locks is a reputation-based bridge distribution system where users can do things like learn about bridges and invite their friends, but Locks uses anonymous credentials to protect the social graph, such that if Alice learns about some bridges and invites her friend Bob to also use those bridges, the bridge distributor does not learn that Alice and Bob are friends. To facilitate systems like locks, we need to know which bridges have been discovered and blocked, as I mentioned before. How do we do this? Well, you might be thinking, isn't this a solved problem? Haven't there been a bunch of studies already about how to figure out which resources on the internet are blocked and which are not? And yes, but these generally look at public resources, like, is this news website accessible from this country? This is a different setting from the one that we're working in, where we want to know about secret bridges and whether they've been discovered by the censor or not. We need to make sure that the process of trying to figure out which things are blocked and which are not doesn't reveal secret bridges to censors. The obvious way to do censorship measurements is active scans. The basic idea is you try to make a connection between a host in the region of interest and the resource you want to measure happen, and you measure whether that connection was successful or not. So I've presented this on the slide in the most direct way. We run a server or perhaps have volunteers in the region of interest who try to make connections to the different bridges. and we measure which connections succeed. The problem is, this can be noisy. It could draw the attention of the sensor to the bridge scanner, and then the sensor could look at what else is that server connecting to, and it could say those might also be bridges, and then block access to them. So in our solution, we look at active scanning as necessary to do at least a little bit, but we want to restrict the amount of active scanning that we do as much as possible. Instead of focusing on active scanning, we're going to focus on another signal, which is anonymous user reports. If a user tries to connect to a bridge and finds that they are unable to connect to the bridge, then they can submit a report to us saying, hey, my bridge doesn't work. And they can do this anonymously. We don't need to know who they are when they submit this report. Then we can reach out to, for example, a scanning server in the region that the user is in, and have it try to connect to the bridge, and validate whether the bridge is actually blocked from that region, and then report back. So what should these reports look like? Well, a simple design is you take the bridge line, which is the information needed to connect to the bridge. So this includes things like the protocol used to connect, the IP address and port of the bridge, and cryptographic information like a public key. And you can simply hash the bridge line as a proof that you know about the bridge and should be allowed to connect to it. We also include a nonce and the date to prevent replay attacks. However, this design doesn't protect against the attack, where users who do have access to the bridge submit many reports saying that they're unable to access the bridge. This can lead to additional scans of the bridge, which as mentioned can be dangerous because they can alert the sensor to the existence of the bridge. It would be nice if we had a way to revoke users' abilities to submit additional reports if we find that those users have been submitting bad data. But we don't want to violate user anonymity in this process. So how can we do this? The key insight is that we can leverage the anonymous credentials in systems like locks. So if we add to a user's anonymous credential the count of false reports or inaccurate reports that they've previously submitted, then we can do the following protocol. I'll give this in an example where Alice has already submitted 2 false reports, and the maximum allowed number is 2. So if her F value increases, she should be cut off. Alice, whether it's true or not, submits a report saying that her bridge doesn't work. And as part of the report, she includes a zero-knowledge proof that her F value in her credential is less than or equal to 2, which is the maximum value that it's allowed to be. The bridge distributor will give her a p-value, which is a session identifier. This new p-value is set in Alice's credential, and the bridge distributor can go on and initiate a scan. So it asks the scanning server to connect to the bridge. The scanning server tries to connect to the bridge and finds that it is, in fact, accessible. So it reports this back, and the bridge distributor marks that Alice's report is inaccurate. Now, when Alice sends a request to the bridge distributor asking for the status of her previously submitted report, she can get a statement back saying, this was marked as a false report. You need to increase your F value by 1. Now, importantly, I want to mention the anonymous credentials are not falsifiable by the user. They have fields that can be hidden, but they can't be forged. So when the bridge distributor says increase F by 1, this is not a request, this is how the protocol works. Alice must do this. Now, if Alice wants to submit additional reports, she's unable, because she needs to include a proof that her F value is less than or equal to 2, but it's not less than or equal to 2. She can't prove a false statement. So here I've shown how a user's ability to submit additional reports can be revoked if they're found to have submitted too many reports, without at any point them having to reveal exactly the number of reports that they've submitted or their identity. In summary, we designed a protocol for users to anonymously report that they can't access their bridges, and users who submit too many inaccurate reports lose the ability to submit future reports, However, even in this case, their anonymity is still preserved.